with Viper Trading Systems. In this video, we're going to talk about another object type, and this particular object type is called a wedge. Now, when you think of a wedge, what you're really thinking of is like a triangle. You know, for instance, let me just do it with the Ray tool on NinjaTrader, and I'll show you what a wedge would look like. See, this would basically be a wedge, okay? Now, you can also use it as a ray only, but you would just simply not use the one part of the wedge. In other words, you just use like the ray. Let me show you how this particular tool works. You don't use the ray on NinjaTrader. You use the wedge on Object Trader. You just simply click, wedge, see the wedge right here? And it draws two lines on your chart, okay? Now, if you don't understand the T and B buttons, be sure and watch that particular video, because the T and B buttons are very important when it comes to a wedge, because you do have a top and a bottom. That's what T and B stands for. So let's say, for instance, if I wanted to fire a trade, if this breaks a trend line, right, like a wedge type setup, and maybe I want to go ahead and do something like this. Now be sure and bring your, see your three dots right here? You want to bring your third dot inside your price. And let's say, for instance, I wanted to fire that trade right there. If it breaks that wedge, then I would just simply set it for long outside. Let's go like even a tick outside it, okay? And that's telling me that now if it breaks this T button, which is the top wedge, okay, if it breaks it, it would fire a long trade. If I wanted to, for instance, even do, let's say, the bottom of it, maybe I want to fire off the bottom just in case. But see, I've got it kind of boxed in, so to speak. See how my angles are? And then I just tell it how I want to trade it with the T and B buttons. So if this breaks this wedge, or it even touches this line, then I can actually get a little long trade. And it's real simple to do. Okay, and this particular trade right here is actually a pretty cool little tool, because if you've learned to draw on your charts quite well, see how that went through that line right there? I could even add one if it goes through this one again right here by just simply turning that back on. That's the power of the wedge, okay? Because we're not boxing it in like a rectangular box. We're using a triangle. Now this can be really good. See how that did the second trade just by simply breaking that line, okay? That is the wedge trade. You can kill the trade anytime you want because you're in the profit, okay? Up to the individual how you want to trade. All right, so the wedge trade, again, you just simply go to your, right up here, and you choose a wedge, okay, your wedge, and then it draws those two lines like that, okay? Now this can also be very powerful. Let me just fire another contract just for the fun of it. And I want to show you how you can even get out of the trade with a wedge also. I'm going to get this one out of the way right here, and we're going to draw like a trend line, and we'll watch this trade as it continues going, and we'll be able to draw a trend line to get out of the trade. Let's say, for instance, I wanted two contracts. See how that kind of came down to that little area? And I wanted two contracts, but now I want to be serious about getting out of this if it breaks my wedge. I just bring my third dot back in, okay? I can get this one totally out of the way if I want to, just bring it out of the way. Now that becomes my bottom. See how that became the, or pardon me, the top. So this is the bottom right here, okay? So if this breaks this little wedge right here, I can actually get out of this trade, or maybe I want to just scale out of the trade. I can just tell it I want to go short outside it, but it's not really shorting. It's just going to simply take you out of one of your contracts if it breaks that wedge. That's the power of the wedge tool, because when we do this in our trading room, we actually draw on our charts. And as these trades continue, see how that's kind of holding that trend line so far? Then you're okay on that. But what if it comes back a little bit more and you want to get out of one of those contracts? Okay, that's the power of that wedge. Now that this is trying to make another, see how you're getting 2 points of contact again? you can reposition your wedge accordingly. Just simply drag it up to the other wedge right here, see? And if it even goes higher, for instance, you can move your targets out of the way. And if it starts pulling back at all, you can do your wedge to where you can get out of the trade. What if I just said, you know what? You come below that line right there, and I'm going to go ahead and take both contracts off. All they would have to do is touch that line and go below it by one tick, and would be out of that trade. But see how that kept me in that trade with a wedge? Okay. Now I could even tighten it more if I want to. And of course we can get out of the trade. I think I moved it a little bit too much. Got to do it this way. We'll do it on short inside, and it'll take you out of that trade if it takes it out. See there? That's the way you do that. That's the top button on this. That was the bottom. And all I had to do is remember which was which and use my wedge as like a line, for instance. And it can really save you a lot of money on your trading because you're literally drawing a trend line on your chart. Notice that it's even breaking the original trend line now. So is this trade pulling back a little bit? Absolutely. Could you get out of the trade with a little bit more profit? With the wedge, you can. Okay, that's the power of the wedge. Be sure and watch the video on the TMB buttons, because top, bottom, okay? But if I move this, obviously, out of the way below here, this actually becomes my top. See what I mean? So with the wedge, you got to be a little bit more careful because it's got a TMB button also, and you just simply tell it how you want to do. If I wanted to take this little trade even right here, for instance, if it goes above that line right there, could I take that by just simply touching that line, or even bring it to the bar itself, for instance? I can do that by just simply putting my wedge on my chart like that. Okay, that's how to use the wedge. See you in the next video.